Joel's heart never left here. He had a nice corner office downtown Salt Lake, but his heart was here. I would get phone calls from him in the middle of the day, and he'd say, "Hey, Dad, what's happening on the ranch?" And I knew that on the bank's nickel, he was looking at water rights, he was looking at conservation practices. His heart never left here.
This is my parents' house. And then my grandparents' house. My grandparents have passed. My sister's, they're remodeling it now. She's gonna move out here.
We'd start working together part-time. He'd be up here on weekends. We ought to do this, we ought to do that.
When I had that conversation with him, his first reaction was, awesome, but I can't afford to have you come back. There's no money. And I said, well, Dad, what if let me get creative and I'll see what I can do.
He discovered some water rights that needed to be changed.
Water is life for us down here. We're in the middle of a long-term systemic drought. There's just no relief in sight. Great Salt Lake's hitting record lows. Our normal average rainfall here is usually 13 inches per year. When you only get, 7 or 8 inches, it makes a difference.
They're not making any more land, and in the West, they're not making any more water. And so you need to take what you have and improve upon it, become more efficient, and conserve and protect it.
The Ferry family's long legacy of conservation was born out of necessity. It's how they've managed to survive and thrive in the worst drought Utah has seen in 1,200 years.
The entire Intermountain West is a desert. Utah is the second driest state in the nation. So Great Salt Lake, it's water in the desert. The Bear River it's the largest river that empties into Great Salt Lake. And back then, the farmers, they dammed off the river and built this canal system. It's a huge canal system. And that's where we get our water from.
Did you ever come down here when you were a kid?
Oh, all the time. This is where I would go. Like, this bend right here is catfish money.
Yes.
This is where, you throw out a worm, you throw out a little, chicken liver or something, whatever.
Chicken liver, all right.
The best is if you're
not gonna give me
I'm not gonna give you my secret. What are you gonna find you down here fishing next week? This is right at the very, very bottom of the Bear River before it dumps into Great Salt Lake. But with the drought, the warmer temperatures we're experiencing, Bear River is down. It's running at about 10% of what it normally would. In similar situation, 40 million people rely on the Colorado River for their drinking water, for the food production, for their life. And last year, Colorado River only produced 35% of what it normally would. You can see the watermark. It looks like it's flowing backwards right now.
Right.
A little bit of breeze is pushing it upstream. There's just no flow to it. And so it's almost acting like it's just a pond. It's rough. It's not good. It makes me nervous. This is what I worry about.
Joel and his ancestors have been thinking about water since they set down roots in Utah 120 years ago. And to this day, they've managed to find a way.
There are some intrinsic values here of taking ownership of what's going on. It's about sustainability. We have been able to make the desert blossom like a rose. And that's what heritage is all about. I am doing it as though my grandfather or great-grandfather were watching me. I bear their name, and I need to be accountable to that. And so that's part of why we do what we do.
Using regenerative practices like no-till farming, crop rotation, and planned grazing, the Ferry family has maintained a healthy and diversified business, managing 100,000 acres of ranch and wetlands, farming over 200 acres of corn, alfalfa, and wheat, raising 1,200 of their own livestock, and feeding 6,000 more. And these days, they spend a lot of time looking out for Mother Nature.
The business side, you have to meet your obligations, and you have to be on top of what's happening, dealing with the animals, dealing with the climate, and all of those technologies, because if someone else is running a better mousetrap, you'll be out of business.
Sustainability means you have to take the resources that you have and to be able to do it year after year after year after year. If you don't adjust and shift to meet Mother Nature, then it's non-sustainable. Normally would be 15 degrees warmer than we are now, and I can't explain it. It's just cold. And normally, our corn would be 6 to 8 inches tall. It's barely a couple inches tall, but it's just crazy.
It is not a friendly valley. The soil is not the best in the world. The people here are hardworking. They come from a heritage that is unique, and they came to this valley because nobody else wanted to come here. My great-grandfather came from Chicago right after the Transcontinental Railroad in 1900.
Tried to be a farmer, was lousy, but his son, my grandfather, was extremely good.
Developing land, and that morphed into agriculture and to what we have today.
So it's me, my uncle, and my dad. My dad works with the cattle. He's got a background in animal nutrition.
I'm the namesake, and so I always knew this is what I wanted to do. And yeah, there's a business side of it, but there's also a passion. It's a way of life. I'm not real excited about irrigating, but I do have a love for the cattle.
I'm fourth generation farmer. I was born 208 feet away. I left to go work in the oil industry as a financial analyst. And if you work for yourself, particularly in agriculture, you learn to live by your own drumbeat. So I came back after 2 years, and because of my background, I do the business side of the ranch, and my nephew manages the wetlands.
When you think of Utah and cattle grazing, a lot of times you think of grazing up in the mountains, you know, up in the aspens and stuff you might see on Yellowstone, right? Like on TV. And we're in a completely different environment here. We're down, it's really flat. Most of what we graze is actually wetland acres.
I've done a lot of irrigating and know the secrets of it. I mean, this ground out here is not friendly. And if you're not careful, it'll throw you under.
So a lot of our property is flood irrigated.
We're actually putting the water on the field when it needed to be there and then getting it off. And so you didn't have like overwatering or underwatering.
In the last 5 years, we've probably laid over 80,000 feet of pipe. In the end, our operating costs dropped significantly, our maintenance costs dropped significantly, but it's also increased the bottom line.
If we save water on the ag side, that's water available to go to these wetlands. And so we look at the big picture. So it's not just, you know, impacting one segment of our operation, but across the board, it impacts everything.
But what I have to be careful about is protecting the water and the waterways from the animals, and also making sure that I'm not damaging the habitat. I mean, these cattle have to get along with what's already here, and that's the wildlife. And my motto has always been that the buckaroos go out and look at the cattle and could care less about the grass. The rancher goes and looks at the grass. And by looking at the grass, he can tell you what the cattle are doing. But you look at the grass first.
We have, it's called Phragmites. It's a reed grass that's extremely aggressive. It grows, 10 feet tall. And so we've trained our cattle, and our cattle like to graze on it.
These cows have an important job because Phragmites, if left unchecked, will take over an entire wetland, disrupting a delicate ecosystem.
Birds, they don't care about whose property is who, what fence lines may exist. What they care about is the resource on both sides.
The Ferry family property borders the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge, managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
I was out with one of the managers of the waterfowl management area, and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, how come you don't have any Phragmites?" Because they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting frag, spraying it, trying to burn it, trying to knock it back. I said, "Well, we do. We graze it."
Before you know it, the Ferry cows received an official invitation to join the U.S. government in the war on invasive grasses.
It's been so successful, and there's now thousands of head of cattle that are out in these wetland areas grazing to help fight it back. Not just us in our business benefit from grazing Phragmites, but other ranchers, here on the Wasatch Front, where other areas in the mountains may be, drying up because of drought. There's other options available to them. And it's this approach of managing it through natural means. And the cows will really target the bad vegetation and leave the other vegetation that will grow seeds and roots and other things that the birds like to eat.
About those birds.
Millions of migrating birds rely on these wetlands as they stop over and move through. And we rely on it to graze cattle, to raise crops, and to live as well. And so there's a balance that we have to strike. Zoom out on a map, Great Salt Lake is this little island of green in this desert. It's a really critical area for that migration. And as the lake is shrinking, like this year alone, it's going to go down another 2 feet from where it is today. Okay, and you think 2 feet, that's not much, right? But it's the largest water body west of the Mississippi. And that 2 feet is 56 square miles of ground that will be dry. Farmers struggle. Great Salt Lake dries up, you're gonna have significant problems. Dust storms, less snowpack because of the lake effect snow, right? It's this domino effect. Where is all our water going to come from? There's not enough water. How do we fix that?
Our focus is not today's cattle transaction, but it's tomorrow's. The thing that you always worry about, you put your life into an operation, and then you say, who's going to carry the torch? Because you can't do it forever. And, the greatest heartache that farming and ranching families have, there's nobody to see it continue in the same level of conservation and sustainability.
Can we keep agriculture in such a way that the next generation wants it, but does the public respect and understand what it takes to be able to put food on the table?
What is the future going to look like? And the Wasatch Front's expected to grow by 2.5 million people over the next 30 years. It's going to double in size. We're just an hour from Salt Lake City. A lot of people are coming up. And so how can I plan and prepare today for that growth so that people can come and be part of our community and experience this beautiful area that we live in and have, vibrant habitats for wildlife and productive farmland and cattle grazing areas? How can we make all of that work together?
The biggest challenge we face right now is labor. Everybody wants to hire your kids away because they know how to work.
When we'd have vendors stop by, say, what are you doing on the ranch? And Joel would say, this is a teenager, like 13, 14. Well, I'm doing what everyone else doesn't want to do. And they'd always complain, said, Dad, nobody works as hard as we do. And I said, that's good for you.
When I was a banker, 5 o'clock came, stress is done, I'm out. And now it never ends. It's 24/7. I'll tell you what, Sunday morning, guaranteed, cows get out. Someone leaves a gate open, they knock a fence down somewhere, they're in someone's field. As farmers, we're rolling the dice. There's significant risk. It's a different type of stress, but it's a good stress.
At the end of the day, when you look at a crop of calves or a wheat field or a cornfield, some things you just can't buy with money. I mean, Joel came back from a very lucrative position, but it's not about the money.
I love it. I've improved thousands of acres of wetlands. It brings me a lot of fulfillment in my life to be able to go out and say, okay, I built a pond here, and now look, there's ducks living on it, and there's, birds using it, and it's vibrant and healthy and productive.
It's a great comfort to me to knowing that I have a son who's going to follow in my footsteps. He's 5th generation, and he's got a 6th generation coming up. Then the 4 generations with my involvement, it's 120 years. And so we're looking at beyond that. I mean, it's more than just a business. It's a lifestyle, and you get a connection to the land. And it becomes part of you as far as your heritage, as far as your legacy, as far as what your life is all about.